Hey everybody. When you're starting to use the painting center, we are going to make sure that you know what things are, where things are, and how to put things back. Right now you are seeing a video of the painting center, and this is how it should look at the end of class. The paintbrushes are all in their correct spots. The water cups are stacked neatly, filled with fresh water. The tempera paints are all nice and clean. They are not plugged up and goopy. There's not paint dripping down the sides, and there are little mixing trays. They're not going to be perfect, but they are not filled with paint. They should be clean enough for the next class to use. So these have been used for years and years, but they still should be something we can continue using and to stay clean. So these have to be clean before you can leave for the day. Our paintbrushes have to be rinsed and set down nicely sideways so that we don't smush their hair. This is an important part of using the art room, is being able to put things back in their right places and put them back nicely. It would be awful to run over to this center and find, when you're ready to use a paintbrush, to have a goopy paintbrush that is making all the other paintbrushes all gross too. So please clean your paintbrush. And to clean a paintbrush, you take your paintbrush, turn on the water, and yes, you got to get your fingers in there to smoosh out the paint, to squeeze out the extra paint, get it out. Okay, once it's clean, make sure that the point of your paintbrush is nice and pointy again, and then set it back down nicely. Our paintbrushes need to last us a long time, so please take good care of them. Make sure you turn the water off all of the way. Now this drain sometimes drains a little bit slow, so if it starts filling up with water a little, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. It will drain. When you are starting a painting, you're going to start over here by grabbing a tray and then deciding which type of paint you would like to use. What type of paint is best for the type of painting you want to make. Do you want to make a painting that's kind of light and the colors are airy and a little bit see-through? Well, watercolor paints might be perfect for that. Do you want something that's easy cleanup? Do you want something that is pretty basic and your colors are going to be bright and bold? Well, maybe use the tempera cakes. Watercolor pencils, you use them just like you would use a colored pencil, coloring things in very carefully, and then you'll use water carefully on top of the colored pencil. We can talk about how that works later. And then there's tempera paint sticks, and these are basically like a glue stick, but they are filled with paint instead. So you do have to be careful with these and use them nicely so that they can last for a long time, but they are like a little glue stick. Also, please make sure when you are using these, you get the lids back on top so that we are saving them and they don't dry out. They are like a glue stick, they will dry out. If you do decide to use these, there's some little containers here so you can pick a couple colors that you want to use, put them on your tray, and get to work. Then when you're done, you can put them back and put that back in there as well. Make sure when you're taking things, you're just taking one. You don't need, and you may not use, all of the different types of paint at once. You should pick one type of paint and use it, and then clean it up if you need another kind, and then come back and get the second kind you need. Please take care of our supplies. Oh, look at how beautiful. Somebody put these back so nicely. We want to make sure that we're putting things back nicely so that the next group can enjoy using them as much as we do. Watercolor pencils are so fun. You're going to need a whole tray to use them, and then make sure that you catch them. If it does roll a little bit on your table, make sure you find them and put them back so that we are not getting them mixed up with the non-watercolor pencils. So once I've chosen what type of paint I want to use, I think I'm going to use tempera cakes. Yeah, they look a little gross, but they're fine. There's nothing wrong with these. They paint just as well as any other type of paint would paint. All right, I'm going to move this over. I'm going to get a cup of water, and I'm going to get a smaller paintbrush and maybe a medium or a big paintbrush so that I have painting tool for big areas and tools for little areas. And that's really a good idea to have when you're painting. I would bring this back to my table, my workspace, make sure my chair is ready and I'm ready to work and I have an idea. And then I need to get a messy mat. A messy mat protects your table from getting super messy, and that way we don't have to have as much cleanup. A messy mat is really good for when you have a very gluey picture, if you're working in the collage center, or even if you're using markers or chalk. This is a good thing to have to protect your table area and to protect your arms from getting messy. Tempera cakes, you gotta wake them up with some water. So you get a paintbrush with some water on it, twirl it around, and then the paint will start to turn up as you add water. You can see that the paintbrush is now turning red, and it's going to be ready to use. I'm just going to test it right there. See how nice and bright those colors are? So it doesn't have to be beautiful paint. It doesn't have to be brand new in order for it to work really, really well. When I am done with my painting will go on the drying rack with my name, and then I will clean up. So when you hear it's time to clean up, please don't wait. Please, please, please don't wait to clean up. Get your name on your artwork, put it on the drying rack right away. Those are the first two things. Then take your tray, pour out the old water, fill it up with some new water for the next person, put that down. Check your paintbrush, give it a quick rinse. It does not need a fancy rinse. We're not washing dishes here, people. We are just cleaning up. I make sure I clean my paintbrushes, get all that icky paint out of it, put it down so it's nice and flat, ready for the next person, and I return my paints back to where I got them. So I'm going to set them in the box, and there's a picture right there to remind me and show me what it's supposed to look like. Watercolor paints look a little like this. When I open up my watercolor paints, they look like that. Make sure that things are put back in the right place and nicely and neatly so you don't have to rush. Now the tempera paints are a little different because tempera paints are the ones you use to mix different colors. Here's a little color mixing chart up here that will tell you how to make certain colors. Well, you should know by now, yellow plus blue equals green, red plus yellow equals orange, blue plus red equals purple, and then here are some of the slightly more challenging colors to mix. If you're looking for kind of a peach color, mix some orange with some white. If you're looking for a gray, a little more white and a little tiny bit of black. If you want to make a brown, find an orange with a little bit of black. Or you can use the opposite colors. And you're going to need to use a mixing tray for when you are painting with this kind of paint. Now my rule in the art room is only take a little bit at a time. And if you take more, we end up with big spills and big messes, which we don't want. One thing you need to do before you start pouring paint is you need to check to make sure the top is not stuck, because sometimes the tops get dry and you need to use our little tool here to unstick the paint. I just have this hanging here so that if anybody needs it to check your paint, because what ends up happening is we end up getting big globs. The lids are not on very well and they will fall off. When I'm coming and using paint, I'm pouring myself that much. That's it. Do not fill the whole thing. I can't put it back into this bottle. So if you need more red paint, come back for more red. The paints always stay here. You do not take these to your table, ever. These stay here. You come back and get more paint as you need. But that way everybody in class knows where to find the paint. That much paint, that's all you need. That's not that much. That will do a lot though. So please take care and use only a little bit at a time. Do you need every single color if you are only painting a sky at the moment? No, you do not need every single color. Chances are you will only have time in your work time to use a few, maybe use 2 colors. Our art class time goes quickly, and if you spend all of your time pouring paint, you will not have time to use it. So please do not pour every color, just a couple at a time. A little bit of color and move on. I can always come back and I can use more. I can always get more, but these little containers, these little trays, they should never be full. Especially if you just need a little bit of something, only take a little bit. Even better, share with a neighbor, share with a friend. So I'm gonna use these paints and I'll be right back. Now that I put my painting on the drying rack, now I can start cleaning up after myself. I made a little bit of a mess, but look, I used most of my colors. So what I can do is I can take my my paint palette over here, and Mrs. Miller only has one hand to use right now, so I'm just going to use a paintbrush and quickly swirl to get my paint out of the tray. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there should not be any wet paint left over. I'm going to tap it off to get all the excess water off, and then I'm going to put my tray back in here where it was. I can then clean off my paint brushes, squeeze that extra paint out, make sure it's nice and ready, set it gently there. Do I have anything else? I do. Got to clean my water, pour that out, rinse it, pour some fresh water, set it over here. Check my paintbrush, give it a quick clean. This is the one I use the most. Set it back, turn off the water, and then return my messy mat to where I found it. If I have a little bit of mess on my table, which I do, I'm going to come to this white bucket here. There are some rags in here. They should not be dripping, and I'm just going to wipe. Oh, I think that was some mess from earlier, but I'm going to take care of that. I don't want to leave a mess from where I was working. And now I am all cleaned up. I put that back. I can return my pencil to where the pencils live, right over here. And now I am cleaned up, and I am ready to get lined up.